On this week's show, the striking new Tata Nexon takes on the Maruti Vitara Brezza. And later on, what's better than 4x4? 6x6 of course. Two very different six-wheelers tackle the dunes of Rajasthan.
Well, Murphy's playing his games with us today. Every time we pull out the camera to shoot, it pours, and every time we put it away, the sun shines. But we've just about managed to cheat him for a bit and get a bit of a dry spell. And we're here to talk about how Tata have been consistently putting out good products of late. And their Nexon has really impressed us because it's so true to the concept. And it looked like it just rolled out of Auto Expo and straight into the showroom. Well, when we did our first review, we felt that it was not only the way it looked, but it had the true potential to shake up the competition. So now that we have our hands on this car, of course, we're going to put it back to back with the competition. And its natural competitors are the Brezza and the EcoSport. Now, the EcoSport should really be a part of this test. But with the new version that will have new engines due in just about a month, we thought we could do another comparison at that time with the winner of this shootout. Now, with the Brezza only having a diesel offering, it is the duel of the diesels. Let's get right to it. Let's begin with the looks. The Nexon looks radical and eye-catching. It's got the beef and the ground clearance to play the part of a compact SUV, and yet the coupe-like roofline and the white ceramic-looking plastic highlights really differentiate it and make it quite stylish. The Brezza, on the other hand, has textbook SUV design. It has the stance, the upright manner, the right proportions, and it has its fair share of flair with the contrast roof and body panels. It is a decent looking car on its own, but in this comparison, it really looks boxy standing beside the Nexon. Well, that was on the outside, but on the inside too, the Brezza does the job of a compact SUV quite well. With the more upright rake of the windscreen, the A-pillar, the large window area and the higher seating, it definitely gives you that commanding feeling in the feel of an SUV from behind the wheel. The Nexon has the lower seating, but the large seats are better cushioned and more comfortable as well. Visibility is still good and you do get enough of a commanding feeling from behind the wheel. But compared to the Brezza, it does feel more car-like. In terms of practicality, both offer bottle holders on the four doors, cup holders in the rear armrest. The Brezza has two glove boxes and the Nexon has one large one with a removable tray for tablets. Both offer center storage under the armrest and the vicinity of the gearbox, but the Nexon's area is too deep and narrow. It's not the best place to keep your phones either. The shutter for the opening though is something you'd expect from a Jaguar. Maybe the big dial for the drive modes could have been positioned elsewhere to make room for a mobile phone holder. Of course, there are the aux, USB and 12-volt power sockets on both. And the Nexon has an additional umbrella holder which channels water to flow out, but only fixed sizes of umbrellas fit. Let's also take a look at the features and see how they stack up. Now, when we're talking about compact SUVs, space is also important. So let's take a closer look at the boots and which one is better to pack in more. The Nexon has the larger 350-litre boot, and though the Brezza has a smaller 328-litre capacity, it is better shaped and has a marginally wider opening. Now, the back seat of the Nexon does feel more comfortable for quite a few reasons. It's got the better cushioned seats, it's got better under-thigh support, it's got marginally more legroom, ample headroom. However, there are some things to note. The way the contouring of the seats is done, it's specifically done for two passengers. Still, you can fit the third passenger in and he will be comfortable enough with enough legroom over here. You do sit lower than the Brezza as well, and the window line is a bit high. Still, it's open, it's airy, there's enough glass area and you never feel hemmed in. Overall, it's a very comfortable place to be. The Brezza has the flatter bench which is better suited to three, but the armrest does intrude a bit more, so the third passenger will feel that. The bench is a little firmer too. The seating position though is higher, so visibility is good. However, it still has enough headroom. Legroom is good enough, but it is a little less than the Nexon. The Brezza has the 1.3-litre 90 HP engine that produces 200 Nm. And the Nexon is powered by the 1.5-litre 110 HP producing 260 Nm. The Nexon is heavier, but has the number advantage in terms of power. It has more power, more torque, and so despite the additional weight, it has the better power to weight ratio.
It's got a nice linear power delivery, and that makes it really good in city driving conditions because you don't have to work the gears much at all. You know, every time you have to slow down and pick up the pace again, all you have to do is put your foot down, and even from as low as 1000 RPM in third gear, it will just pick up and get a move on again.
When you do pick up the pace, the Nexon gets up to speeds quite efficiently too. But it takes time to get to the red line, and you do miss the punch, especially out on a highway when you need to make an overtake. However, drive easy, shift before the red line, and the Nexon does really well.
Now the Nexon does have different drive modes, and economy is the one that you use when you want to save on fuel. But the thing to note is that at low RPMs, economy does make this a little hesitant and jerky to drive.
City drive mode is activated.
Switching it to city does give you that little bit more. But the best mode really is
Sport drive mode is activated.
Sport, where the engine does feel like it's breathing a little bit easier, it gets a little bit livelier, and you get the best of the power. And as you heard, the drive mode does have voice prompts too, so all you have to do is use the rotary dial. You don't really have to take your eyes off the road. It tells you exactly which mode you're in. Now when you start off from the word go, the Brezza's engine does feel quite lively in a constant acceleration. But when you have variable speeds and you have to slow down and then get a move on and you have to keep changing your pace, that's when the Brezza just doesn't do too well, especially in traffic conditions. Every time you slow down, you have to shift a gear down to get a move on again. And when you do use that gearbox, you realize that this gearbox is the notchier of the two, and you have to have a little bit of a heavier hand to use it.
Once you do get some open road and you get past the 2000 RPM mark, the Brezza delivers strongly and it revs much higher too, and freely, so it feels strong. Basically, the Nexon performs better in city conditions and the Brezza when you're at higher speeds out on a highway.
Now, as far as refinement goes, you do know that there is a diesel under the hood of the Nexon. You can hear it as well, but it is definitely the more refined car in all senses. Cabin is more hushed, it shuts out outside sounds, road noises, suspension sounds and engine noises much better, and that adds to that premium feel. It just feels like a bigger car.
The Nexon also turns in really well, and although there is roll, it doesn't take away from the experience. The fat tires are grippy, and on the whole the Nexon gives you a very safe and secure feel. The Brezza, on the other hand, does corner a bit flatter and turns in reasonably well, but it just doesn't feel as good as the Nexon in this comparison.
Now the Brezza's steering just doesn't quite offer the feedback that the Nexon gives you. It doesn't weigh up quite as well, and even when you're at straight line high speeds, it does have quite a lot of slack at center, which just doesn't give you the confident, solid feel that the Nexon has.
The Nexon, however, steals the show as far as ride quality goes. On its own, the Brezza is really not a bad ride, cushioning you well from the roads. But when you sit in the Nexon after it, the difference is noticeable. It just cushions every shock better and handles the bad roads really well, and its suspension works more silently too. Overall, it is the better ride. Now, we've given you all the pluses and minuses quite clearly on both cars, but there is one more important factor: price and fuel economy. Let's address the fuel economy first. At this point, the Nexon's price is unavailable, but we do expect some competitive pricing from Tata.
Well, the Brezza does tick all the right boxes. It is engineered for the Indian buyer. It's a spacious, practical and well-equipped compact SUV. And despite the smaller engine, it does perform well too. Of course, it has that strength of brand Maruti behind it, which makes it a very sensible buy. However, it does have its issues. It's a bit irritating to drive in city traffic. It is the noisier of the two, and the interiors do fall bland in this comparison. Well, coming to the Tata, the brand may not give you that peace of mind that comes with Maruti, and the Nexon does have its issues as well. The engine is not quite as punchy as we would like, and it's a bit hesitant sometimes. And the fit and finish overall could have done with a bit more of finesse. However, standing in this comparison, there is no doubt that this is the car that has more emotional appeal. It is the one that draws you in far more with its snazzy looks, its premium feel interiors. And it's not just about the way it looks inside and outside, it is practical too. It's got a spacious cabin, it comes well equipped, the engine really great to drive in the city and performs adequately out on the highway, and the ride and handling is definitely better than the Brezza. And we expect Tata to price this aggressively. Well, the Nexon has won us over and is the winner in this battle.
Fluids have no form. They flow, they change shape, and because they have a very low density, they can't support any mass. Now, sand isn't a fluid, but here in the Sam, out in the middle of nowhere, way out from Jaisalmer in Rajasthan, it sure is behaving like one. Now, conventional wisdom says a 4x4 is absolutely the best way to tackle sand. But I can't help but wonder, if 4 is good, wouldn't 6 be better? Just look at how easily the inch-long scarab scampers up the golden sands on its 6 legs. Time to drive up to the area where I'm meeting Rahul, who's also in a 6x6.
I'm here at Sam Dunes in Rajasthan with the Polaris 6x6 ATV, and Shapur is supposed to join me with yet another 6x6. But as usual, he's running late.
The pressure currently is 70 psi, and for sand, I need to go down to 20. But I want to surprise him.
It's been over an hour. Where is he? Shapur!
He's going to fall off when he sees this 15-ton monster bearing down on him. And bear down on him, I will.
This is absolutely insane. So this is what I've got.
So this is a 6x6 boss.
Yep.
It doesn't look very big, does it? And what, 760 cc?
It's a 760 V-twin.
V-twin.
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty powerful. 6-wheel drive, of course.
Yes, with diff lock and limited slip differential.
This is open. Wow.
Yep.
That's nice. Now look at all that. Drive shafts and drive shafts and drive shafts. 6-wheel drive, that's what it's about. And it's an automatic, right?
It is a CVT, yes.
So the thumb throttle.
It's got a thumb throttle,
Yeah.
plus the mode selector, which wheels you want driven.
Yeah,
It's right here.
pretty cool. But
That is something really crazy.
that is crazy. So 360 horsepower engine, lots of pulling power. You can see all these air bottles. They're to drop the tire pressure. You can see that, that's like 15 psi. almost all the way down. Really strong inverted bogie suspension. That's what you get from a train, but really tough. This is really lovely, nice and supple over the stuff, over the soft stuff. And this is a crane. They've got a crane here if you want to lift something up to 1 ton. So it helps with all the artillery, all the shells inside. And of course, this is a connection to the Bofors gun. That over there. It's an off-roader, so you also get a winch which can pull a serious amount of load. So in case you get stuck, in case you need to pull somebody else out. So this really is a serious bit of kit. Okay, so let's see what we have here. One standard field artillery tractor dashboard. Of course, solid build quality, you can dance on it and nothing's going to happen. But also a lot of things you expect on a vehicle like this. It's almost like your basic 4x4. This one is for the low range, currently in low, way on the sand. That's the diff locks, the 3 between the axles, the 1 in the center. You can use all sorts of permutations and combinations. And this here finally is a commander's telephone. It's a lovely old style system. There's another one in the back of the cabin. Fire! That's all he has to do. He sat here, he's got this turret above him. Pretty neat. But now, let's finally climb some dunes. So this is an 8-speed gearbox, and the system now is in low range with the tires deflated, so you get a lot of traction on this kind of sandy dune slopes. I'm going to start in 3rd and see how it goes. Now the power band is extremely narrow, so I need to upshift pretty quickly, and then it dies down quite fast. But now I've got this big climb here, so I have to be on the throttle. Nice and consistent, 1500 RPM, and it's going to drag me up the slope. Shit, that's quite a drop, but I think we're going to make it. Nice and straight. Let the weight take it down. Yeah, easy peasy. I'm going to shift another gear, but as you can see, again, the momentum is almost gone. Now there's another climb coming up, so I'm going wide. Yeah, the good old truck steering. And I'm going to have to be on the gas again. That's the turbo spooling up. And now she has enough torque to climb this dune. Pretty mad. There's just so much weight here, you can't take anything for granted. The ground is soft, the declines are steep, you've just got to keep remembering to balance this vehicle. What I also notice is that the 6x6 system is working extremely hard. I can feel it slip at times, the rear wheels bog down if I go too slowly. But what surprises me is that the rear axle feels supple, and that's because the load on each axle is halved. It's what the Indian Army uses for their shoot and scoot operations. The Bofors fires a few shells, bang, 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 they hitch on and they're away. Truck engines like this max out at 2500 RPM, and peak power is even lower. This is due to the extremely heavy components and reciprocating masses. So I let it growl to around 1400 RPM, double the clutch and shift to the next gear. So much for the good stuff. But what about the bad bits? Of course, if this were a regular road test, we'd have a lot to complain about. Very poor visibility here. The engine isn't so refined. Back down that steep decline. And the clutch, well, just let's say it's a bit heavy. Of course, here you have the classic power to weight ratio issue. I have 360 horsepower, enough for a good, extremely powerful saloon, but this thing is just so slow. It's incredibly slow. Just the fear of having something this heavy on a sand dune, you can sink it anyway, you can keep thinking about where the weight's going to go next. So while I drive what looks like the easier path through the dunes, over saddles and colls, Rahul zips up and down the crest. 1 minute he's above me, ripping along on top of the dune. The other, he's making a quick descent right alongside. And that V-twin, it sounds like a chainsaw with a sport muffler on it. What actually makes this Polaris special is the tremendous power to weight ratio this 6x6 has. And immediately, it's quite apparent. While the Polaris is massively agile, the fat 6x6, well, just isn't. The Polaris is actually finding so much traction on the way up the dunes, Rahul can even get the front wheels in the air. More speed, even more throttle, and soon he's leaping up, all 6 wheels airborne. Sand, however, means all his landings are nicely cushioned. And then once he selects 2x4 or 6x4 in this case and sends power only to the rear 4 wheels, he even gets some tail out action. The power slides aren't really long because there's a lot of stiction in the back, but the tail does step out nicely, especially when he flicks those handlebars. And later he even manages a few 360s. This thing is loads of fun.
So it's been a crazy day.
It's been an insane day.
Yeah, absolutely. I never expected to like this 6x6 system so much. You know, I thought 4x4 is great. It's what you want. It has a bit of agility. But this, the rear axle on this thing, on the truck, is just so supple. And I never ever thought I'd drive something as heavy as 15 tons through this sort of soft mud. I thought the truck would sink like the Titanic, but that back axle, the way it distributes its load and just keeps carrying on and carrying on, and it's like a caterpillar almost, you know. Wow, the 6x6, it's just something else.
Absolutely. Even the ATV, the 6x6, it was just absolute fun to ride.
I saw you. All 6 wheels in the air, turning.
You just can't help it. It's got
chucking
so much
the back
power.
out.
It's got so much power. You just accelerate and it'll just take on any dune that you can see around here.
My God, yeah, it's just a revelation that you can, you know, look at any soft dune and say, okay, that's cool, I'm going there, and, you know, and then the next one and the next one.
This is amazing.
And I think the 6x6 thing, you know, we are so head up on 4x4s, but the 6x6 thing, if you're really, really serious, you want to do some extreme stuff, yes, I think it's going to be a trend. There's already Mercedes' great 6x6, and I just can't wait to drive the next one. 4x4s, I think they're yesterday, yeah. 6x6, maybe that's the new way.